Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to your mat. So I have compiled this yoga video for any spring athletes or overhead athletes. So let's get right down to it and talk about yoga props. You're always prepared if you have a yoga strap, which I have here. Yoga blocks. If you don't have any yoga blocks, you can feel free to use books. I also will be practicing yoga barefoot today. That's always good to remove any socks or slippers. And as long as you have a mat or a towel to practice on, that's the safest way to practice. Do not practice on just bare carpet or bare hardwood floor. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start seated in a cross-legged position. And we're gonna begin with a couple of easy neck stretches. So I'm doing some neck rolling. So here it looks like I'm going rather quickly, but just go as slowly as you would like to kind of work out any of those kinks in your neck. So now I want you to go ahead and drop your head to your right hand side. So your right ear is kind of leaning towards your right shoulder, and put your left hand on top, or your right hand on top of your head, and let that weight be there with your left arm out. You can go ahead and switch. So go ahead and place your left hand on top of your head. So your left ear is kind of pushed towards your left shoulder and your right arm is kind of out. And you are able to kind of feel that stretch go all the way down to your fingertips there. Make sure that your shoulders aren't creeping up towards your ears and you're kind of relaxed in that position. All right, you can go ahead and come out of it. So what we're now gonna do is a side body stretch. So right now I have my right hand and elbow on the mat, and I have my left arm over my left ear. So if that's too deep, you can come out of it and just kind of stretch on your hand. But if you want to go deeper, you can go ahead and keep your elbow on the ground. Go ahead and come out of that and switch sides. So left hand on the mat, right arm over your right ear. Go ahead and stretch there. Whenever you're stretching, make sure that your chest is kind of opening up towards the ceiling, so you're not rounding your back or hunching your shoulders over. You always want to keep those shoulders open towards the ceiling. All right, come out of it. I apologize in advance, the kittens were all over the place in this video. So go ahead and move to a lying down position. So what we're gonna do is we're actually going to do some shoulder rotations. So I have my knees bent, and then I have my hands, my fingertips on the tops of my shoulders, and I'm kind of moving them in very large circles. So I started with very small circles and I moved and started to make them larger and larger as I went. So we're kind of lubricating our joints here. Go ahead and stop where you're at and reverse your rotation. So now my elbows are kind of like moving inwards towards my chest, and they were before moving outwards towards the walls. Make sure that when you're doing this, your shoulders aren't like creeping up towards your ears. Make sure that you kind of keep those shoulders down and relaxed. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and sit back up in a cross-legged position, and I'm gonna grab my strap. If you don't have a strap, go ahead and use a blanket or a towel or a hoodie or a t-shirt, something that you can grab either end of that's going to give you some resistance. Okay, so my yoga band is not stretchy though. It's not like a resistance band. It's something that is taut. This is just kind of like a yoga strap. It's not elastic. So I'm holding my strap in front of me, and I'm holding it very loosely. So my hands are very close to either end. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of keeping my elbows straight and moving my arms all the way above my head, and then pushing my arms behind my back. So my shoulder is naturally rotating in its socket. Okay, so if that is not giving you enough of a stretch, go ahead and choke up on the strap and move your hands closer together. So as you can see, I moved my arms closer and my elbows are slightly bending as I'm kind of pushing my arms back, and that's okay because I'm feeling an excellent stretch there. Make sure that if this is causing you any shoulder pain or discomfort, don't do this stretch. All right, so go ahead and put the strap to the side. And we're gonna move into some spinal warm-ups here. So we're going to go ahead and move from our cross-legged position, and we're going to move to seated with our, we're gonna sit on our knees with our toes tucked under. All right. So as I'm showing you that my toes are kind of tucked under, so I'm sitting on my heels right now, and this is where we're going to stay, and it's giving us a little bit of a secret foot stretch. And I went ahead and I put my arms out to a T, and I crossed my right arm over my left arm, and I twisted my elbows. So now my right palm and my left palm should be touching each other. And go ahead and lift your arms so your elbow crease is at eye level. This should be giving you a really good scapula stretch in the back. All right, you can come out of that, and we're gonna go ahead and switch. So I teed my arms and I put my left arm over my right arm, okay? And so if you're able to hold this stretch, make sure that your elbow crease is at eye level. If you can't do that though, you can go ahead and come out of it a little bit and just simply touch your hands to your shoulders like I just did if this stretch is a little bit too much. All right, go ahead and come out of it and place your arms above your head. Prayer hands to center, and then we're gonna go and move into our first downward facing dog of the day. All right. So in this downward facing dog, I always like to do very slow bicycles to kind of work out any calf tightness, because my calves get extremely tight when I'm sitting at my desk all day. So that's what I'm doing here. So go ahead and work out any tightness you might have in your calves in this first down dog. And then after that, make sure that you're able to kind of breathe here. And then I have my knees bent, and I'm trying to straighten my spine. And then with that spine straight, I'm gonna go ahead and re-straighten my knees. So we want our back basically straight and our knees straight, but don't worry, our heels will eventually follow. Our aim is to get our heels to touch the ground. All right, go ahead and drop to your knees, and we're gonna go ahead and come into a tabletop position. And we're gonna do finally we're gonna get into this spinal stretching. So we're gonna go ahead and do a couple rounds of cat and cow to get our spine warmed up. So we're gonna go ahead and drop into cow face pose, and then go ahead and drop our chin and round our back into cat face pose. All right, and then inhale up into cow. And then we're gonna exhale down into cat pose. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat pose. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat pose, and then go ahead and come to a neutral spine. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and step our right foot into a low lunge. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna come into a couple more side stretches. So go ahead and lift your arms next to your ears. Make sure your shoulders are down here. And what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and I'm holding it here. But what we're gonna do is I'm saying, hey Luke, give me my blocks. So I like to use blocks when I'm doing side stretches, but you don't have to. So I went ahead and placed my left arm on the mat or on the block. And I lifted my right arm over my right ear, and I'm getting a whole stretch over my right side. Make sure that your hips aren't popping out of place though. Keep those hips neutral. All right, and I switched where my block was, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a stretch. So my right hand is on the mat or the block, and your left arm is over your left ear. Make sure you breathe into that stretch. All right, excellent. All right, come out of that, switch legs. So now our left leg is in the front, next to our left hand. Hips are square, low lunge. Lift those arms next to your ears and make sure your shoulders are down. Don't forget to breathe. Once again, I'm going to use my block. So my left hand is on the ground or mat or block, and my right arm is over my right ear. Make sure those shoulders don't come up though, and breathe into the stretch. Again, make sure your hips aren't popping. Make sure that those hips are neutral. Come out of that and switch. So go ahead and place your right hand on the mat or on the block and your left arm over your left ear. Inhale there, exhale there. Make sure your shoulders aren't creeping up by your ears. All right, so we're gonna actually sit back into a child's pose, and we're gonna hold this for about 5 seconds. So make sure you're relaxing here. This is a relaxation pose. Breathe. And then we're gonna move on in a minute. I'm just saying hi to my kitten there. If you have any pets, make sure that you take your hand and give them a pet. Still in child's pose here. Oh my, how cute. Alrighty. We're gonna go ahead and come out of that child's pose. And we're gonna go ahead and step our right leg forward. And we're gonna come into a high lunge or a crescent pose. So as you can see, my right knee is over my right ankle in a 90-degree angle. My hips are down. Abs are engaged, arms are next to my ears, and my shoulders are down, my toes tucked under in the back. Okay, so I went ahead and lowered my hands into prayer hands at the center of my chest. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little bit of a spinal twist here. This is good for any throwing athlete. So I went ahead and exhaled, leaned forward. So my left elbow is on the right hand side of my right knee, and I'm kind of pushing my prayer hands into the middle of my chest. If you want to get into this deeper, feel free to place your left hand on the floor and extend your right arm towards the ceiling. All right, go ahead and come out of that. We're gonna go ahead and come down into a low lunge. We're gonna go back into down dog, and we're gonna switch legs, and we're gonna step our left leg to the front with our left knee right over our left ankle. Our hips are tucked under, abs engaged, arms up next to our ears. And we're gonna go ahead and come into prayer hands. So I lean forward, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my upper body to the left, but keep your hips square, so only my upper body is rotating. And then my right elbow comes on the outside of my left knee, and I'm pushing my hands to my solar plexus, right in the middle of my chest. If you want a deeper stretch though, go ahead and open it up. Right hand on the ground, left arm facing, or left arm pointed towards the ceiling. And if your neck can handle it, go ahead and look at the ceiling as well. Hold this here, make sure your shoulders are down, and don't forget to breathe. Go ahead and come out of it, arms up next to your ears, prayer hands. I think I'm gonna drop to a low lunge, step back into downward facing dog. Breathe here, and I think we're gonna move into another hip stretch right now. Let's go ahead and lift your right leg and then go ahead and bring it through in between your hands. And then we're gonna go ahead and place both of our arms on the inside of our right leg. Right now we're in what's called lizard pose. So you can either have your knee up off of the mat, or you can have your knee down on the mat, whatever's more comfortable for you. Okay, so I'm right here in lizard pose. So make sure that your shoulders stay away from your ears here. It's easy to do that. So try to get into that hip stretch. And what we're gonna actually do here is we're gonna rotate into a deeper hip stretch. So we're in a side lunge stretch right now. So my right knee is bent and my left heel is on the floor. So basically the only two things touching the floor is my right foot and my left heel. All right, you can go ahead and rotate out of that back into lizard. Make sure that your shoulders are away from your ears. Go ahead and step back into down dog. All I do are bicycles and down dog just for my calves because they're so tight. Left leg back, and go ahead and step your left leg through to a low lunge. Move both of your hands to the inside of your left knee, and now come into lizard pose on the other side. So I have my right knee on the ground there. You can always lift that knee off of the ground if it doesn't work for you. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually going to move my body to show you the lunge, so my body's facing the camera. But what you will do in this case is, instead of doing all this, you'll simply rotate your hips so you're facing forward. So your left foot and your right heel are the only things that are kind of touching the ground. Make sure that you're not sitting back because we're not really getting that stretch where we need it. As you can see, my elbow is kind of like prying open my left leg so I can get into that hip a little bit more. All right, so excuse all the moving around. I just wanted to make sure I could show that to you. All right, so go ahead and come out of that and rotate back into lizard pose with both your hands on the ground on the inside of your left knee. All right, go ahead and come out of it. Step back into down dog. Okay, so in this down dog, we actually are gonna have another focus on a calf stretch. So what I did is I actually stepped my feet as wide as the mat, and I am grasping either edge of my yoga mat. So my hands and my feet are as wide as the mat. And so whenever my feet are that wide, my heels can touch the ground with my knees straight. So if you can do that, that's excellent, but if not, keep those heels off. I just want you to be able to get a deeper stretch. Okay, so I stepped out of that, and now my feet are back to hips width apart, and I have my right knee bent, and I'm really getting into that left calf. And go ahead and switch. I want you to really focus on breathing into those calves. I know that sounds strange, but whenever you're breathing into a stretch, have that focus on that part of your body. I have both of my knees bent now, and I'm trying to straighten out my back and then slowly straighten my knees. This really helps me get into the proper position for my down dog, so I know that my lower back is safe. All right, so what I want you guys to do is go ahead and step forward into a standing forward fold with your back completely straight. You're bending at your hips. So go ahead and touch your shins or touch the floor. Now go ahead and bend over with your knees bent, kind of come out of it. We're gonna inhale with our arms up, exhale with our hands to our chest. So what I did was I have a little blanket here. So if you want to go ahead and grab a throw blanket or something like that, something that's very soft and not too thick, I have it placed directly under the balls of my feet, no further in, and my heels are still on the mat. So what we're going to do is a forward fold. I'm going to fold at my hips with my legs straight as they can get, with my back straight as well. I'm exhaling here. So this is as far as I can get down because this is a forward fold that focuses on calf stretching. So you should really, really feel it with your toes elevated. And if you have a kitten or a cat or a dog, make sure that you use your hand to give it some pets. They were actually trying to catch a fly at this point, so that's why they're around. All right, go ahead and come out of that stretch. Put the blanket to the side. We're going to do a quick vinyasa. So inhale, arms up. Exhale, bend forward with your knees bent. We're going to go ahead and inhale with a flat back and knees straight with your fingertips on your shins. Exhale, hands to the mat. Exhale, step back into plank. We're going to lower down into either cobra, up dog, or low cobra. So I was just in low cobra, now I'm in high cobra. And if you can get into it, go ahead and push up into upward facing dog. Now go ahead and exhale into down dog. We're going to move into our next stretch. So lift your right leg, step it forward into pigeon pose. All right, so pigeon pose is whenever your leg is kind of like flattened in front of you. So you have your right knee in front of your right hip and your right heel in front of your left hip. If that is way too much though, go ahead and come out of it and go into this alternative stretch called thread the needle, which is whenever you cross your right knee over your left ankle over your left knee, and you put your hands behind your left thigh, and you're kind of pulling it towards you. That's going to give you the same stretch, but it's going to be easier on your knees. Okay, so if this is actually hurting your knees, you should never ever feel a knee stretch, so come out of it if that's what you feel. If not, go ahead and sit up in this stretch. If you have the flexibility, you can go ahead and lower yourself down. If you are lowering yourself down though and laying down in the stretch, make sure you're breathing deeply into your hips. Make sure that your hips are square. Make sure that you're not falling over on the left hip or the right hip. You're not favoring any side, and make sure that you keep your shoulders away from your ears. Try to find as much relaxation as you can here, and don't forget to breathe. Same thing goes for anybody who took thread the needle instead. Inhale and go ahead and sit up. As you can see, I'm tucking my left toes under. So go ahead and lift yourself up, use your abs, and push your right leg back to give it a big stretch. Come back into downward dog, lift your left leg up, and push it forward into pigeon. Once again, if pigeon on this side doesn't work, and if this knee is a little weird, go ahead and come out of it and come into thread the needle. As you can see, my left knee, or my left ankle, my goodness, over my right knee, and I'm kind of grabbing at my either thigh or your shin, and you kind of pull it towards your chest. That's going to give you the same hip stretch that pigeon pose will, and it's a bit easier on your knee. Kittens everywhere. All right, inhale as you're sitting up here in pigeon. And if you have the flexibility, go ahead and exhale. Make sure you keep those hips square. So as you can see, I'm not like leaning on my left hip, leaning over on my right hip. You know, the only things that are really touching the ground here are my legs and my arms that are kind of holding myself up. So if you are laying down in this stretch, make sure that you keep your shoulders away from your ears, and make sure you breathe into your hips. Okay, really focus that breath and try to find as much relaxation as you can here. Go ahead and get ready to start to sit up. Inhale and move yourself up to seated. And then I went ahead and tucked my right toes in the back, and using my abs, I went ahead and pushed my left leg up to give it a big stretch in one-legged downward dog, and then come back into regular downward dog. And we're actually going to we're either going to step or hop to a seated position. So I don't know if I jumped or not. Yeah, I jumped into a seated position here. And so we're going to go ahead and get ready for What do you think? This is going to be a hamstring stretch. So once again, I love to use my strap for hamstring stretches because my hamstrings are just as tight as you can believe, because all I do is sit at the desk all day. So I like to put my strap around the balls of my feet. If you don't have a strap, you can use like a hoodie or a t-shirt, or you don't have to use anything. Just make sure you're able to get a stretch in this position here. Whenever you are stretching, your aim is to get it's to basically get your belly to your thighs, not your nose to your knees. So the purpose is to keep your back as straight as you can keep it. Just keep it really, really straight. You don't want to hunch or round your back at all whenever you're doing any type of leg stretching, because it's just not really going to give you any flexibility. All right, make sure you breathe into that and then come out of it. So what we're going to do is another spinal twist here. This is a seated spinal twist. So what we're going to do is I have my right knee bent, my left leg is straight, and I have my left elbow on the outside of my right knee, and I have my right hand behind my right hip, you see there. And notice that my left toes are active, pointed straight towards that ceiling, so make sure yours look like that too. So in this stretch, what you're going to want to do is first keep your shoulders down. 2, whenever you inhale, you want to kind of gain length. So pretend there's like a string pulling your head to the ceiling. And when you exhale, you want to really try to get into that stretch a little bit more. So your shoulders are, turned out to the right. Your head should be looking over your right shoulder, and your eyes should also be looking to the right-hand side. All right, come out of that, and we're going to do the other side. So bend your left knee, straighten your right leg, make sure that your right arm is coming on the outside of your left knee. Left hand is behind your left hip. All right, make sure that your right toes are active and pointed towards the ceiling. So make sure that you're keeping your shoulders down. Every time you inhale, you want to gain length. And then every time you exhale, you want to get a little tiny bit deeper into that stretch. Push yourself a little bit further to the left there. Okay. Breathe here. All right, go ahead and come out of it. So what we're going to do now is I grabbed a block. If you don't have a block, please do not attempt what I do with the block, which is a supported bridge. So go ahead and lay back. We're going to get into a bridge pose now. So this is a really, really good back strengthening workout / stretch. So actually I decided not to do a supported bridge, so I just put that block away, so don't worry about it. So make sure that whenever you're coming into bridge, your fingertips are able to touch your heels. So make sure you back your heels up. And then go ahead and inhale and push your pelvis towards the ceiling. Make sure that your lower, mid, and maybe your upper back are lifted from the mat. As you can see, I kind of have my hands clasped. You can have your hands clasped, or you can push your palms into the mat to kind of support you and get you further up. All right, come out of it. All right, we're gonna come right back into it. I'm gonna do this one more time after this. So go ahead and inhale into bridge, lift your hips, low, mid, maybe upper back. Notice that my knees are directly over my ankles, so you do wanna make sure that you have that going for you too. All right, come out of that. We're gonna do it once more. All right, go ahead and come back into bridge pose. Alternative to this pose would be actually a wheel pose, which is what you would know as a back bend, but we're not going to go for that today. We're just going to start out with something little. All right, come out of it, and a good rest pose is to kind of rest your hand on your chest and your hand on your stomach. All right, go ahead and pull your knees to your chest, give them a big hug. That's our counter pose. For any bridge pose, the counter is always going to be pulling your knees to your chest. All right, one final hip stretch. We're going to get into happy baby. So go ahead and grab the outsides of your feet and try to push your knees into where your armpits are. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna leave our left knee bent, and notice that I have my right leg straightened. So try to get that right leg straightened. It might move a little bit, but you wanna try to get it as straight as you can so you can get that stretch into that right leg. All right, come out of that, back into regular happy baby. When you're in happy baby, make sure that you're pressing your lower back to the floor. Don't let it round up. All right, go ahead and keep your right leg as it is and straighten out your left leg. And there's my left foot. So make sure you're trying to get that as straight as you can. Breathe, and then go ahead and come out of it. Do another big stretch. Aim those knees to the armpits. Aim your lower back into the ground. And go ahead and do one final hug. Your knees into your chest there. All right, you guys. Now it's time for our final resting pose, Shavasana or corpse pose. We're gonna maintain this stretch for about, this is no stretch, we're gonna maintain this resting pose for about 3 minutes. So when you're in Shavasana, make sure that your knees and ankles are kind of flopped open and your arms are by your sides about 5 inches away from your hips. Make sure that your head is back and your chin is kind of up above your forehead there. Go ahead and breathe into this stretch. Whenever your body comes into this stretch, it should automatically know that it's time to relax. So keep that in your mind whenever you're coming into Shavasana. This body should have the muscle memory to know that when you come into Shavasana, it is time to relax. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys relax, and I'll be back in a minute. Wherever you are, start to take some deeper breaths. Go ahead and start to make some movements in your fingers and your toes. Go ahead and stretch your arms above your head and do a big long stretch. Go ahead and roll off to your right hand side and just kind of stay there as if it's almost time to get up in the morning, but you're not quite ready yet. Make sure you go ahead and place your left palm on the floor to push yourself up to a seated position, and gently come into a cross-legged position for the end of your practice. All right, everybody, go ahead and place your hands into prayer. Hands pose. The light, the love, and the honor in me. So it's the light, the love, and the honor in you. Namaste. Thank you guys for joining me on the mat again. So glad to be back. I hope you enjoyed this yoga practice. Please let me know if there are any specific stretches or practices you want me to do for you. I would be so glad to. See you guys later.